Hello everybody, welcome to session 5.2 of my FileMaker for Stage Lighting series. Today's session is going to be a continuation of last session. Last time we spent a lot of time adding an automatic patching system into our FileMaker solutions to allow us to automatically patch Eos family consoles with all of the various information that we have in our database. The big thing that we did not cover in that class, of course, was how to actually send the fixture profile over. So that's the focus of today's class, is to actually be able to create ourselves a table of all of the existing Eos profiles that are available to us. There's almost 40,000 of them, and make them so you can actually map that information over to your existing database records and patch your entire show without having to go back and forth and type a whole bunch of things and a whole bunch of numbers. If you're jumping into this video for the first time, I'd recommend you at least go back and watch the last one, 5.1. And if you've never done any of my videos before, you're probably gonna have a pretty bad time, so you should probably start at the beginning and work your way through to get up to now. All right, let's jump right in. So last we left off, we had finished our script over here. Today I will be working in light mode so that you can actually read my screen. Hopefully you all were able to at least get an idea of what I was doing before with the PDF of the script, so I apologize about that. But we've got this script here all ready to go, and really all we're going to be doing is adding another little line in here that sends our type over. So we're going to start by getting all of the various types that are available to us within Eos. So in order to get started here, what we're going to want to do is go to the ETC website, and we're actually going to download our fixture profile library. You can choose pretty much any one you want. The goal here is not, again, we don't care about the actual information contained within. I'll show you what we're actually going to extract in a second, but chances are for 99% of the use cases, you've got every fixture you need in any of the modern libraries. So as long as you're downloading the patch and not the library information file, you're good to go. So I have already downloaded the fixture library 3.1.0.33. And when you open that folder up, you see there's two things contained inside. You've got a zip archive, which is what the actual console wants in terms of, if you were to update your fixture libraries on the console. But the thing that we're interested in right here is this fixture list.html. So if I preview that really quick, you see there is just a ton of lines that are in an HTML table with the manufacturer, the model number, how many DMX addresses it takes up, if it's color calibrated, and then as well as just a full name, kind of a human readable name. So a whole lot of data there. Unfortunately, though, FileMaker is not able to import HTML directly, so we do have to have one quick intermediate step, and that's going to be to take this HTML file and make it into a CSV. To do that, I'm going to open it up with Excel. I assume if you don't have Excel, you could probably do this with Numbers or with Google Sheets. I haven't tried it. I do know it works with Excel. And then I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. I know based on all of the other importing I've ever done in FileMaker that the first line always wants to be my field names. So I'm just going to delete this first line. And then I'm not going to scroll through all of it to make sure it's everything I want. I'm going to just come all the way to the bottom, make sure there's no weird little footers or anything like that. And it doesn't look like there are. Yeah, so we're at 39,548 individual records here. So you could also, clean this up and make just the ones that you normally use. That's perfectly fine too, but I'm going to show you how to get them all in, at least for now. Okay, so once I've got that first line cleaned up, I know that I've got column headers in my first one and all the rest is data. I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to save this as a CSV. And it's going to save in that same folder, I believe. Yep, right there. Just like that. Now if I come back over to my folder, boom, now I have a CSV of all of that, however many we said, 35,000 lines of data. So that's awesome. So that's all we need to do to get this whole thing prepped. We download it from ETC, you could even really delete this zip if you wanted to, because we're not going to use it. We really only care about this fixture list.html. We're going to make it into a CSV, and then we are pretty much off to the races. So I'm going to close that for now. I'm going to close Excel. I don't need that anymore. I don't need ETC anymore. I'm actually going to come over here, back to my FileMaker solution, and I'm going to make a brand new table. So I'm going to open up my database manager by doing Command-Shift-D, or going to File, Manage, Database. And now I'm going to create a brand new table over here, and I'm going to call it, how about Fixture Profiles? Create. So now I've got my fixture profiles table here. I actually don't want any of these original original records. I don't care about any of those, any of those field names. And so for this, I'm going to go back and reference that file that I just made and see what were some of my column headers. I've got manufacturer, I've got model, I've got DMX footprint. I'm not going to care about calibration, and I'm not even really going to care about full name. So all I'm going to care about is manufacturer, model, and footprint. So I'm going to say, yeah. So I'm going to say manufacturer. I'm going to say model, and I'm going to say footprint. So I've got my 3 fields there, good to go. And I'm not going to define any relationships yet. We're going to get back to our relationships in a little bit and explore that. For now, I just want to get the data put into this table. So I've got those fixture profiles. I'm going to click OK. And now, as you remember, FileMaker has automatically created a simple layout for us with just those fields that we've put in there. So I'm going to just edit this layout really quick, make it look a little bit nicer. I'm going to make it into a table instead of this little form view just because of the amount of data we have coming in. And go like that, like that. We'll put our footprint up here. And if you wanted to, you could theme this exactly like the rest of your solution. Typically for like behind the scenes ones like this, I don't really spend the time to do it because the only time I'm actually looking at this screen is if I'm trying to troubleshoot something. So right now I'm in list view, or excuse me, in form view. I'm going to go over to list view by clicking on those little 3 lines. And now you see, of course, I have no data there. So the first thing I'm going to do is come in here, File, Import Records, File. I'm going to find the file that we're working in. So I had that under 5.2, library update. There's my CSV. I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm going to add new records and then just make sure that all of these things line up. So I'm going to say, great, use those field names, manufacturer, manufacturer, model, model, footprint, footprint. And then of course, I'm not going to use calibration and full name. I'm just going to click import. And it's got my 39,547 records. Boom. Just like that. All of that stuff is there. And because it's all text, it actually really doesn't inflate the size of my database very much. Now you might find if it does, or if it's, you don't need all this extra data. Again, you could make this same concept that just has the fixtures that you always have at your theater, for example. So if you're never renting fixtures and you only have the same 4 or 5 fixture types on any given show, you don't need to go through all these steps. You could just make yourself a simple table, use the same fields, and just label things accordingly. The only thing to keep in mind is that the names do have to match what these are. They have to be these things. This is what EOS has in its library. Great. Now, the other important thing that we have to do here is strip out any spaces from any of our names in the manufacturer or model field. Now, there's a couple of ways we could have done that. We could actually have done it in Excel, doing a find and replace. I think just doing it in FileMaker is easy. If you were going to make this a recurring thing where you wanted to continuously update your database with the latest fixture library, you could do that and make a script that does the import and then automatically loops through and gets rid of the spaces. But what I'm going to do for now is I am going to just do something as simple as creating a new script over here. And this is just going to be a temporary script that I'm probably not going to use again. I'm going to call it clear spaces. Freeze window, show all records. Actually, before that, I want to go to layout. I want to make sure whenever I do a script like this, I personally like to make sure that I put a go to layout and I'm specifying exactly what layout I'm doing this on, or else I could run the risk of just kind of clicking around and accidentally being on the wrong layout or with the wrong table, and then manage to get rid of all the spaces in my entire show, which I don't want. Great. I don't need to go to records. So I'm going to do a find and replace. So perform find and replace. Turn the dialog off. I'm going to say find space, replace with. Now EOS wants an underscore in place of a space. So this is just something that EOS wants. I'm not smart enough to know why, but this is how the strings need to be formatted in order to work properly. So I'm sure somebody can comment and say why that is, but here we are. And I'm going to say all. So this will basically say it'll go forward in my list and backward in my list. I want it to search all records, and I want to search within all fields. So this will basically take anything in this table or on this layout in this table that I currently have, replacing the spaces with underscores. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to click play. Let's try that again. I'm going to save that. I made a mistake. I want to make sure that I hit replace all because it was just finding before. So replace all, save, and now play. It's going to take a second again because there's 39,000 records, but didn't take very long at all. And now I've got all my spaces gone and all of this stuff is readable to Eos. Great. Okay, so our next step is to go ahead and start to link these things over to our fixtures themselves. So if you remember correctly, we had our fixture types table before in our items and use field. So essentially what I need to do at this point is I'm going to add those 3 fields to this table as well. So I'm going to open up my database manager, fixture types. I'm going to say manufacturer. I'm going to say model, and I'm going to say footprint. Okay, so I'm going to make my three little text fields there. Great, done. Okay, let's add them to our layout then. So I'm going to make this, maybe make this type a little smaller. Maybe move the weight over a little bit. Obviously, frame type does not need to be that big. Quantity in use, move that a little smaller, and maybe we'll fit it in right here. So I'm going to have my manufacturer. I'm going to have my model. And I will do my footprint. And typically, I mean, I want at least, I mean, I obviously don't want more than 3 digits there because there's no such thing. So we'll do a footprint there. And I won't put any labels on it for now just because I'm not going to spend the time to make this all look super pretty. But now I've got those fields there and you see that they're here as I click through. I'm going to make sure that I can see them in all of them because that's just a personal preference of mine. So I'm going to come in here to layout setup and I'm going to uncheck delineate fields on current record only. And so what that'll essentially do for me, I'll move these up a little bit too. What that'll do for me is show me all of the places where I have empty text now, not just on the active one that I'm on. And it looks like I've got a pretty good assortment. I don't even remember at this point because we've been doing this over a couple of years. I don't even remember where all of these instruments came from, but we've got a decent assortment here of moving lights, conventionals, and some smaller things as well, and, you know, an iris, all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be a really great example file. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we want to make it so we can pre-populate these fields here with information from our other table. So the way to do that is we're going to create 2 value lists. The first one is going to be manufacturers. Every time I type the word manufacturers, I feel like I'm spelling it wrong. And so I'm going to say use values from fixture profiles, manufacturers. Great, great. I'm going to stop there for now because I want to show you how this works, and then we're going to come back and add the model in a second as well. So if you remember correctly, we've done this a bunch of times throughout this class. We are going to link this field here, make it a drop-down list with values from manufacturers. And we'll add a little arrow there. Great. And now here is all of my various manufacturers. And of course, it's only going to show me so many of them, so I can click little dots and see all of them. Or I could start typing and it'll narrow it down for me a little bit. So that's really great. And you might be thinking, okay, well, obviously we're going to do the next thing for models and do that. But think of how many different models there were or different profiles there were on that table. So what I want to do is I want to create a second value list that is referencing this first value list in order to narrow down my choices. So for example, I know that when I type in etc fixtures, I don't want every single potential profile in my entire show popping up. I want only things that are under the category of etc fixtures. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and define a relationship between these tables and then get that value list set up. So we're going to define that relationship, and I actually think this is the first time that we are going to be defining a new instance of a table on our relationship graph. So the first thing I'm going to do is obviously our fixture profiles and our fixture types are linked by a couple of key things. And those things are manufacturer and model, because we want those things to match up both. We might have multiple manufacturers in a show, multiple models even within that manufacturer. And I do wish that EOS called it profile instead of model, but I get why it's model. So I've got that there. And now the other thing I'm going to need to do in order to get my value list to work properly is I'm going to add another instance of my fixture types onto this relationships graph. So I'm going to say fixture types, and I'm going to call this fixture types for EOS. And then I am going to link just my manufacturer over. Where is it? Oh, there it is. I'm going to link just my manufacturer over. So now I've got that relationship there. And this will make a little bit more sense in a second. Again, this is a more complicated relationship that we have not done yet, but it will make sense as we get a little bit deeper. So got those things defined. I'm going to click OK. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set up the value lists that I need for my model field. So I'm going to File, Manage, Value Lists. And I'm actually going to change this manufacturer's one over. I'm going to change this to EOS just to help me a little bit keep track of what's what. And now I'm going to define a new value list that is those models based on that relationship that we defined a couple of seconds ago. So to do that, I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call this EOS, I'm going to call this EOS models. And I'm going to use values from field. Let's see, where is it? Fixture profiles, model. And I only want to include, show values from that relationship that I just created. So again, I'm going to say from field fixture profiles model, and then it's only going to show related values from that fixture types relationship. And then I'm going to click OK, click OK. And now what I'll do is I'll come in here and I will make sure that this second field here, this model field, is a drop-down list. And it's showing me values from that new EOS models list that I just created. I'll make sure that showing arrows there and autocomplete is there. Autocomplete is super important when it comes to this thing, because otherwise you'd be typing a whole lot of information all the way out. So let's say, for example, I had generic was my type. Now when I click here, you can see the only things that show up in this dropdown are things that show up under the generic manufacturer type in my EOS profiles. So I know my 4-cell psych is a dimmer. I know that my DMX iris for source 4, that is, that's actually a good question. Is there a generic iris in here? Doesn't appear to be. What's an iris company? How about a Roscoe iris? Well, not important for this. I'm just gonna get rid of it for now. What about let's do something else here. How about this? We got a VL2500, so I'll start typing in Verilite. And then if I click the drop down, look, it's only VL stuff. So I could start typing in VL2500 spot. And of course, there's my different 2500 spot, no modes, and just like that. Now, what do you notice right away? You probably notice that the DMX field has not been filled in yet, and that's because we haven't done anything with it yet. So there's a couple of different ways that we could populate this data. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to make a quick little script that can run through, and when you put these two things in, it'll go over to that other table and look it up. You might be able to do this with a complicated, or not even really that complicated, but a calculation field, but I'm just going to do it as a script for now. So I'm going to open up my script editor again. I'm going to make a new script, and I'm going to call this set DMX quantity. And I'm going to define a couple of variables. I'm going to say manufacturer. I'm just going to call it manu for now so I don't forget, or so I don't have to keep typing it out. Manufacturer. And then I'm going to duplicate that, and I'll have a model. And again, I'm just defining these variables because I find it easier to work with the variables in the rest of my script versus trying to type out the field name the whole time. So I'll freeze my window. I'll open a new window. And that window is actually going to go over to my profiles layout. We'll do a show all records just in case something got hidden before. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to perform a find in those records based on those two variables that I defined earlier. So to do that, I'm going to say perform find. And I want to say find records where fixture profiles manufacturer equals manufacturer. So I've got my manufacturer in there, and now I'm going to do model. Great, I'm going to add that. Now, one quick little note here. As is, this would probably work for 90% of the fixtures that are in the library, because almost every fixture with this combination is going to be unique. The thing that we have to keep in mind, though, is for something, for example, like a generic dimmer. If you go through your EOS profiles and you look at everything in the generic category, you might find multiple things that have the word dimmer in the model or the profile name. So in order to make sure that I'm matching this exactly, I'm actually going to put a double equal sign here on just under the model. You could do it for both, I guess, but this narrows it down enough, at least in my opinion. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click OK. And then from there, I am going to set a new variable. And this is going to be my footprint variable. So again, what's happened here is we've gone over to that other table. We've narrowed it down ideally to a single fixture type. And now we're going to grab the footprint field from that fixture type. Oh my God. We're going to grab that from our fixture profiles tab. We're going to grab that footprint field, click OK. And then we'll do another show all just to kind of get it preset for next time. And then we'll close that window. Nope, not close file. We'll close that window. And then we'll set our field, our footprint field on our fixture types with that footprint variable. Great. So look through that one more quick time here. We've done our housekeeping up top. I went ahead and moved those things up as well just because it made more sense. I've set a manufacturer and a model variable. I've opened a new window, made sure that all the records in that window were showing, and that's on my EOS fixture profiles table. I've done a find that's going to find manufacturer and match the model exactly. And then I'm going to get my footprint information, kind of clean up my list again, show everything for next time. Really, these are redundant, but I like to just be thorough to make sure that I can't accidentally screw it up later on. I'm going to close that window, and then I'm going to set the field to my footprint type. So then the next thing I want to do is figure out, okay, I can put generic in here, I can put dimmer in here, but how do I get this to automatically go? So of course I could do it with a button. I could do it when I leave the record. I'm going to actually make a script that make it so it runs this script when we leave this model field. So to do that, I'm going to right click on the field itself. I'm going to do a new script trigger, and I'm going to say on object exit, perform that set DMX quantity script, just like that. And now if we test it, there we go, there's a 1. So then what I'll do is I'm just going to kind of pop through this really quick. And let's see, we'll start here with this Parnell and we'll work our way down. And I'm just going to copy paste this since I know that it's pretty much the same. And then how about something a little more complicated like this, like the etc Celador Vivid R. So that's going to actually be under etc underscore fixtures. And I'm going to start typing in nope, not Celador, maybe Vivid. Yep, Vivid. I'm going to assume this is a Vivid R11, maybe. So I'm just going to say Vivid 11. That seems right. I don't remember. And an IQ, that's a Roscoe IQ. And now if you notice, I've got a 16-bit and an 8-bit there. Let's just make sure that they're right. 16-bit, that's right, 4 channels. If I change it to an 8-bit, it should go to 2 channels, just like that. Wonderful. And then let's do generic and then work light. 1 channel. Lovely. I've got all this information here. All of it's ready to go. And DMX Iris. I don't know who makes a DMX Iris, everybody. City Theatrical make one? I'm blanking on that. Oh yeah, DMX Iris right there. Perfect. 1 channel. It could also be a generic dimmer if you wanted it to, I guess, depending on how you like to do those kinds of things. So now I've got all these things linked in here. And right away, you see how powerful this can be. Of course, the next step then is I want to start seeing all of that information showing up back over here on our instruments worksheet that we made last time. We've got all this great, you've got our address information, you know, all that stuff is here, but I don't have our profile information anymore. And if you remember correctly, we have to know the profile in order to, when we do our send script, we have to know the profile attached to the instrument record in order to send it over properly. So there's a couple of different ways, as everything, there's a couple of different ways that you can go about this. One of them would be to make a script that goes through and finds things and links things and does all of that. The problem with doing it that way is that then if you need to change a profile globally in your entire show, you have no way of really doing that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create a couple of new fields here on my very original instrument worksheet or my instrument table. They're going to be calculation fields that reference back to those fixture types. Just like we did with things like weight and stuff like that, it's essentially going to be the exact same thing. So I'm going to go into my editor here, and we will go to, let's see here, instruments, and we're going to call this, how about Eos Manufacturer? That's going to be a calculation. And that's going to be from our related table of fixture types, yes. Manufacturer. Great. Any other options I need to set there? Do not store, great, recalculate. I want to leave that on. And I'm going to do one more that's EOS model. Great. And then once again, that's going to be from our fixture types. And that's going to be our model. And then finally, I'll make our, how about we just call this DMX footprint. Also a calculation from fixture types, footprint. Great. Click OK. Of course, nothing happened. Let's go ahead and add those fields over to this layout. Quickly running out of space on this layout. Let's put it right next to address. That seems to be a great place in my opinion, right? And maybe we get even more, we get a little fancy with this. We'll do it on top, do it on top and bottom of one another. Getting wild here in lighting FileMaker world, right? So I'm gonna do one line for that. Oops, one line there, one line there. Line those up. This will be our manufacturer. This will be our model. Now, so what do we notice right away? Of course, hey, wait a second, nothing's there. And as I look at this list, I'm quickly noticing that all of these fixtures are not actually in that fixture table. Looks like I have two different sets of data there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to that very first, that fixture types that we had before, and I'm going to do a get from instruments. Now I've got all that here, and I'm going to quickly pop through and add that stuff in. Of course, you're probably working with different data than I was, so all of that stuff before is not relevant, but we've got all these here. So I'm going to pop through, and I'm going to put these in, and then I'll be right back with you. Okay, so I went through and I quickly popped through all of that, got that information put in, and now, fingers crossed, when I go back over here to my instrument worksheet, hey, there's all of my fixtures, my fixture profiles showing up. Great. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, now you might notice right away I've got a little question mark in some of these. That's, again, what FileMaker shows if it can't fit all of the data in one field. So if I wanted to, I could make these a little bit smaller, make it a little bit easier. Maybe I'll just make the boxes a little bit bigger for now. Not super important. The data is there. The question mark just tells you, hey, I can't see, even that wasn't big enough. It just says, hey, I can't fit this all in a box. Still, in the year 2022, FileMaker cannot do dynamic resizing of text. Now, you could script it with, calculating links and stuff like that, but well beyond the scope of these classes. Great, so I've got all this information in there, and I'm pretty much ready to go. So now all I have to do is add a couple of lines to my original patch script and see how it worked. And see if it worked, I guess is what I should say. See if it works. I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself yet. So where am I at here? I got patch instrument, and I'm just going to do a couple of things here at the top part of this. Channel address, I'd say probably put them between there. So now I'm going to do a new set. I'm actually going to duplicate this one. Model or manufacturer. And I'm going to leave this substitution here. If you remember correctly from last class, this made sure to get rid of any slashes. Now, in theory, there will not be any slashes in those in that manufacturer field, but just in case there is, why not just leave it on there and be safe? So I'm going to have EOS manufacturer. I'm going to do the same thing for model. It's literally now just changing this to model. Great, done. So now I've defined those two variables there. I'm gonna get rid of this white space. And now I need to figure out where I'm gonna put them. So I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. Whoops, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger so we can see it all on one line. So I got I'm sending the console to patch, I'm sending the address, I'm sending the label. I think before I do gel and all that other stuff, this is where I wanna do it, because I wanna make sure that everything is set before I do anything else. So I'm gonna add a comment here, and I'm gonna say send type. So the message itself is actually going to be a command line. It's not this, this edit target thing. It's actually going to be a command line. So I'm going to copy paste one of my earlier command lines in, and then just edit it a little bit. So we've got user and channel, great. Part 1, great. And then what I'm going to say, instead of at, I'm going to say type. And the type is manufacturer. Now you might be thinking, why type? Why is it not manufacturer? It's a great question. You can ask ETC that. I would love to use the same nomenclature throughout the entire thing, but we don't do that. So it's manufacturer. So part 1 type manufacturer, and then I've got to add a space in here, and then I've got to add the model right after that. And model. Great. So in looking at this, it's going to say EOS user, which is defined earlier on, channel, whatever our channel number is, part 1. Again, this right now is hard-coded. If you were going to do multi-part fixtures, you could make that a field in your own workflow and in your own solution and put it there, but I'm hard-coding it for now. Then type, manufacturer, space, model, space, pound, or hashtag. That's going to be our string that actually does the patching for us. I'm going to save that, going to clean up some white space, and now I am pretty much ready to test this. So I'm going to go ahead and open EOS up and see if we can get it flowing nicely. Okay, so I got it linked. I just did a quick test. It's working properly. And now let's come back over to our instruments worksheet and let's try to patch something. How about we sort by channel. Why don't we start at the very beginning? A very good place to start. I'm going to patch channel 1. Hey, look at that. Worked on the first try. Shall we try channel 2? Channel 3? Channel 4? Uh-oh. Now, what did we notice right away here? Looks like there's a patch conflict here. That's not a super important thing for our show because, again, this was all dummy data that has been gone through a million times at this point. So you're going to get some overwrites, but not super important for what we're concerned with today. And let's go ahead and test the whole shebang real quick. If you remember correctly, we made our patch everything script, patch entire show. Boom. Looks like EOS froze up for a second, but I guarantee you as soon as it's done thinking, there it is. Everything is there. Whole show is patched. All of my labels are in there. If I come over to my database fields, everything is there. Of course, again, we had some little encoding errors here, and maybe we can jump in a future session and figure out how to fix those. But for the most part, it gets everything over for you and all of our profiles. So that's it for today. Hopefully you found that interesting, found that useful. You can see really quickly how powerful that can be. The next classes in this session, I don't know exactly when they're going to be. I'm going to try to get to them in the next couple of months, but I want to do some stuff like automatic group creation, maybe some preset capture and stuff like that. Basically getting a little bit more in depth of what we can accomplish with this EOS link that we have going on and just kind of really showing the raw power of what's possible. So if you have any questions or if you want to see anything else in this series, please feel free to reach out to me on my website or social media or leave a comment below. And if you found something I did wrong, please let me know so I can make sure to correct it. Thanks so much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great day.